a mighty river when it runs. It's a tremendous amount of water. There's a big force there.
The viability of all life on Earth is determined largely by the presence of water. It is the life force that feeds the environment and Mother Nature. The transfer of water between land, ocean and atmosphere is accomplished by a number of natural processes, which determines most weather-related phenomena. Freshwater makes up 3% of the total amount of water on Earth. Located in the northeastern section of Queensland, the Burdekin River is 732 kilometres long and is the centerpiece to an entire network of rivers. Most of the water that flows through the Burdekin River starts its journey slowly, flowing through small creeks and tributaries, picking up more and more volume as it heads towards the Pacific Ocean. The Valley of the Lagoons is the headwater to the Burdekin River. During this wet season, there is no shortage of water or wildlife surrounding this area. As the wet season progresses, the native wildlife flourishes as the dry country comes alive with all types of flora and fauna. The Burdekin duck is found in coastal tropical Australia. The male bustard, or plains turkey, puffs out his throat pouch during mating season. Pigs were introduced during the early settlement, and they are now proving to have a damaging impact to these major waterways. Arguably the most beautiful inland town in Queensland, Charters Towers has been described by many as a living museum. Charters Towers was established in 1872 following the discovery of gold in 1871 at Towers Hill. The horses of a gold prospecting party scattered during a fierce thunderstorm, and, while searching for the horses the next morning, the first nugget of Towers gold was discovered. Charters Towers is also the home of Australia's first regional stock exchange. These historical buildings stand as a testament to a once thriving town and are being heritage listed. Significant amounts of water are required to operate a mine and a mining town. In the early days, water was sometimes as precious as gold, especially during times of hardship. For those who treasure old buildings, Ravenswood is a great site. Many buildings stand unchanged since their date of construction. They are an example of the fashions, buildings, craftsmanship and lifestyle of a previous generation. 48 pubs and shanties stood in Ravenswood previously, but today only 2 remain, the Imperial and the Railway. A stockman named Thomas Aitken found Ravenswood's first gold. Although his gold was unpayable, he convinced others of the prospects, and by 1868, payable gold was found. By April 1869, 140 people were working in the area. Before long, the gold stocks had dried up, until recent years when a fresh ore body was discovered. Once again, Ravenswood was back into another era of mining. Only this time, mechanisation has replaced the labour of men, with new technologies making the mining process a lot more efficient. Still today, mining of gold and coal continues to have a major influence in the Burdekin region's economy. The Burdekin River is as important today as it was thousands of years ago to the Aboriginal tribes that lived on its banks. Bindal Birria Janga, Juru and Warungu are the tribes that call this river by its Aboriginal name, Malmal. In March 1846, the Burdekin River was named after Mrs. Thomas Burdekin by German explorer and scientist Ludwig Leichhardt. In 1859, George Dalrymple explored the area in search of good pastoral land. 3 years later, in 1861, the land along the river was being settled. Cattle properties and agricultural farms were established.
Yeah, okay, mate.
Modern technology is combined with the old methods of mustering the cattle. Helicopters, horses, motorbikes, bull catchers and radio communication are the tools of the modern-day stockman. Beef cattle are the most widespread form of grazing and is a major industry in the upper Burdekin region, with much of the available land used for this purpose. A good experienced stockman who knows his work thoroughly is an essential component to daily life on a station. Their work is by no means easy, often working quite hard while enduring long hours in sometimes harsh weather conditions.
You want to go along that road there, mate? Let's go out that gate. Let's go around home there, yeah. We're a very hidden talent, us fellas.
Well, it was from a dehorning knife. It was an accident. Use it just to slice the top of the horns off the potties when they brand. You'll see it down there when they brand there later.
Now, the Burdekin is one of the wealthiest primary production districts in Australia. About 95% of the Burdekin catchment is used for extensive grazing of beef cattle. This region supports a total herd size of approximately 1.2 million head that contributes $300 million annually to the regional economy. When working in the yard, branding, immunising and drafting the cattle, these men and women are hardy and possess a good deal of endurance. This is the first rodeo that has been held in Brandon. Professional bull riding is fast becoming a mainstream sport throughout the world, and as the word spreads, so does the interest level and the amount of new riders to the sport. One of the major river systems in Australia, the Burdekin, has a total catchment area of 130,000 square kilometres. That's about the same size as England, Greece or West Malaysia. The site chosen for the dam was the Burdekin Falls, 159 kilometres from the mouth of the river. The Burdekin Dam, at last underway, would require a huge volume of concrete. In the end, it would take 630,000 cubic metres of concrete, all of it prepared on the site. It was built with an associated ice plant to limit concrete temperatures in hot weather. The concrete was carried to the dam site by special 18 cubic metre haulage trucks known as Rotex. To protect the project from flooding in the Burdekin River during the construction phase, a diversion was provided for in the form of a conduit outlet. A major milestone in the construction of the long-awaited Burdekin Dam was reached in November 1986, when the conduit outlets were sealed. They'd let the river water flow through the dam wall during construction. With the sealing of the conduit outlets, these safety valves in the main wall, the Burdekin Dam began taking its first water and performing the immensely important function it was designed for. Throughout the construction phase, the weather had been very kind. There had not been a wet season in the 2.5 years it had taken to build the dam. As the last concrete was being poured, there was a moderate flow in the Burdekin which filled the dam to 1/3 capacity. This in itself was a dramatic demonstration of what this structure could do for the entire region in years to come. For much of its life, this mighty river lies so deceptively quiet and inactive. But without warning, it can explode into a fury, spilling millions of litres of fresh water into the sea. The body of water built up in front of the dam wall forms Lake Dalrymple, which is the largest collection of freshwater in Queensland, holding up to 1,860,000 megalitres of fresh water. As well as being a fantastic spot for camping, this lake also has many popular spots for fishing, with schools of grunter, sleepy cod, dewfish, eel, silver perch and black bream being native to the area, and introduced species including red claw, yellow-bellied or golden perch and barramundi. Downstream from the dam wall, the Bowen River spills into the Burdekin. Even though the dam is completed, work continues downstream on the huge Burdekin irrigation area. When water is released from the dam, it is held at the Clare Weir, which was upgraded for the task. Hydraulically operated flap gates add extra depth and double the storage capacity of the Clare Weir. From here, water will be diverted along large irrigation channels into two major irrigation areas being developed on both sides of the river. Although mechanised, the work is still very labour intensive. Every farm has to be adequately serviced by water supply channels, access roads and drainage. Farms have to be the right shape and size to be commercially irrigated and developed as an economic unit. As well, farms must have the right topography and soil types to support crops.
This particular site is a gravity-fed recharge pit. Clean sand that's in the bottom of the pit allows that water to percolate down to the underground directly and accumulates in what would be called an aquifer or the underground water supply. This particular aquifer has some credibility throughout the world. We've had visitors from overseas who understand aquifers and believe that what's going on here is world standard aquifer management. Pump station pumps approximately 200 megalitres a day, and that's carried up the bank, over the bank and into a collection chamber. It travels via an underground pipeline to the centre of the water area where it's distributed into our channel system and recharge pits. We do have crocodiles in here too. There's at least one we know which is over 12 foot long that moves around in this area. Every time we put the sand dam up, he comes over the top, so he lives in the reach of the river.
The preparation of this land for farming purposes was done many years ago by hand. Australian residents, along with people from Italy and all over the world, came to Australia to prepare the land and work on the sugarcane fields. By today's standards, the work was extremely hard, although enjoyed by these people who had a love for the lifestyle they lived and the plantations that they worked on. In the Western world, the first record of sugarcane was in 327 BC. Sugarcane was introduced to Australia by the First Fleet in 1788. However, early attempts to grow sugarcane around Sydney Cove, Port Macquarie and Norfolk Island were unsuccessful. By the 1880s, cane lands were being developed further along Queensland's tropical coast and along the northern coast of New South Wales. Queensland Sugar's marketing history dates back to 1923, when the company's forerunner, the Sugar Board, was first established to market Queensland raw sugar. It wasn't until the 1860s that a viable sugarcane plantation and a raw sugar mill was established. Italians in particular contributed to the growth of the Australian sugar industry, with large numbers moving to Australia as cane cutters in the mid-1950s. The Burdekin is one of the largest sugar growing areas in Australia, with more than 8 million tonnes of cane grown each year, from which the cane is crushed and processed into more than 1 million tonnes of sugar. This huge amount of sugar injects millions of dollars into the local economy each year. Sugarcane is burnt to remove excess plant matter from the crop before it is harvested by mechanical harvester and sent to a mill for crushing. For the cane fields that are not burnt, there are harvesters capable of cutting the green, unburnt cane. Once the cane has been transported to the mills, it is shredded and fed into a series of mills, each consisting of large rollers which squeeze the juice from the cane. Lime is mixed with the extracted juice to neutralise any impurities. The juice then begins an evaporation process, which sees it turn to syrup, like molasses, then into sugar crystals by a process of crystallisation. Sugarcane will always be a part of the Burdekin landscape and has always been surrounded by an abundance of flora and fauna. Found in the huge variety of environmental habitats such as open forests, water swamps, near creeks, woodlands and rivers, more than 280 species of birds inhabit the Burdekin region. People from all over Australia and even the world come to discover what the Burdekin has to offer. The Wonjunga wetlands south of Home Hill is a great place to spot some of the birds in their natural habitat. For this reason, bird lovers flock to the Burdekin every year to watch some of Australia's most precious feathered friends. These wetlands support a huge variety of wildlife that in most places are usually very difficult to observe. The semi-arid region of the lowlands is transformed into a vast wetland wilderness by monsoonal rains which bring widespread flooding from December to March each year. For all nature-loving people, this area is a must-see tourist attraction. Thousands of magpie geese flock to the floodplains at the beginning of each wet to feed on the bulbs of spike rushes, which they dig from the mud with their strong beaks. It is hard to imagine where all the migratory water birds come from, appearing within days of the first rains. Since 1911, there have been 10 major floods recorded in the Burdekin region. Most of the flooding is due to tropical cyclones and the annual monsoon wet season.
They went into the river with the boat. They found this lad clinging to a branch.
Errol Gregory, now retired, was the fireman on a train which was washed off the Burdekin Bridge between Ayr and Home Hill towards the end of the Second World War.
I was frightened, I'll admit it. I didn't know whether I was going to get out or what was going to happen.
Strong winds, rain and flooding isolated the town and destroyed communications. The only way in or out was by boat. In 1957, the new high-level rail and road bridge over the Burdekin River between Ayr and Home Hill offered some protection for coastal traffic against the threat of the wet season flooding. More recently, in February 1991, another landmark flooding was recorded in the region. The water rose to over 12 metres at the Inkerman Bridge gauge, and once again, Home Hill was hit by the rising waters. Groper Creek is just one of the many creeks forming the catchment area. Although there is always plenty of work in this region, there is also plenty of time to play. In the Burdekin region, there is always something to do.
How's that?
From here, the river finishes its long, winding and useful journey at the mouth, where it spills into the Pacific Ocean. The coastline at Cape Upstart is spectacular and is the doorstep to some of the best reef fishing in Queensland. Barramundi fishing in the river or heading out to the Great Barrier Reef catching a trout, the fishing here is excellent all year round.